All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for tonight's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, as we are preparing to get underway here for the 10th race of the FEC Summer Indycar season here at Laguna Seca. Last season, we only had 10 races, and Laguna Seca was the race right before the season finale. This is also the site of where Maybe Racing took home his championship. This season has been a significantly different set of circumstances, though. Maybe's only took home his first victory after the season crossed its halfway point, but he has been on a tear, taking home 6 straight podium finishes, including back-to-back wins. The other thing to consider for Maybe Racing is that he's got pole again. That is one more point in his favor in the championship. He took the points lead coming into today's race by 10 points. With that extra point from the pole, it's now open to 11. Scored Buffalo's attendance for tonight's race is really spotty. It's unsure if he's going to be able to actually make it tonight or not. If he does, he is on a bit of a rebound after a catastrophic DNF back at Road America. His results since then have been first, third, and third, but that's not been enough to keep Maybe behind him. Buffalo now in the behind and has to try and rush his way back to the front over these last 3 races. Now, with Scored Buffalo missing qualifying and potentially missing the driver's meeting, if it ends up being a scenario that he ends up making this race, he has to start dead last in what will be roughly a 12-car field. His title rival will be right at the front, able to immediately click off laps in clean air. Prius Killer 8110 is one of 4 different drivers that have won both in Season 1 and Season 2. He is the only one to have taken only a single victory in both seasons, but making it on 2 different kinds of circuits. But on top of that, he is on his own incredible streak. He's not finished worse than 7th. And the last 5 races, his worst result has been a 3rd place finish. Something incredibly special for Prius. While mathematically he's already out of the championship, he could still steal several more podiums and even a win by chance. The interesting thing about Prius is that for the last 2 races, he has Scored Buffalo to a 2nd place result. That has really made him the biggest spanner in the works. If either Maybe or Scored Buffalo is off pace in the past in FEC, normally it just swaps between them, 1st and 2nd, or 2nd and 1st. Now with Prius being around their pace, while he can't directly influence the championship in terms of tailing it from them, he can take valuable points from these 2 and end up really having a knock-on effect on this championship fight. NFL Racer had a penalty last week after a significant series of issues later in the event, including accidents, engine damage, and dumping another competitor. He is still 4th in points coming into today, but only by about 17 over a 5th place driver, GRPK Golden, the driver who he got into it with. NFL and Golden are one of only 3 drivers who have attended every race this season, and they're in a tight fight now for what is going to be 4th in the championship. Golden is trying to stabilize. His performances have been all up and down the grid, and he has yet to get a finish even close to what he did at the season opener back at Hakone. And when it comes down to the fight between NFL and Golden, both of them on track tonight. Not a lot of love lost between the 2 of them, but a lot less love lost between Golden and the stewards. Feels like he was unfairly singled out after being given a warning for driving standards back at Watkins Glen. 6th place driver in points is Amish Gaming. Amish is 11 points out from GRPK Golden. He has only missed a single race this season. Had some really rough starts early on, but as this has gone on, he is improving his results. A podium might still be in the cards for Amish. And real quick, let's go ahead and look at the championship standings as they are before we get onto the circuit proper. We're going to start from, we're only going to look at the top 21 in points today, being as most of the drivers lower than that have not made an attempt at starting a race for many events. Neesmorph is 21st in points. He has 43 points right now. NDL Shadow has 52 points, both of them from a 4th and a 2nd place result in the first 3 races of the season. Donna Prime 77 is 19th in points with 53 points right now. NDL Dindu, the only other driver who has won a race this season, he still has 56 points. He has not shown up since his win back at Grand Oak. Jack Broseph is still 17th in points with 60 in total. Coca is still running in 16th in points. He has 62 points in total. Thomas 086R has not shown up for the last few races. He is stuck at 72 points right now. King Racing Leo's repeated showing up over the last few weeks has put him up into 14th in the standings with 78 points. 13th is Dr. Pepper. Please, he has 87 points. 12th is Sneaky Potato 841. He has 89 points. He's one out from PTG Neb right now. He's missed 3 races of the season, but Neb did have a good time in the first round of qualifying. He says he's not happy with the harder compound tires, but he does feel that there's a lot of speed to be had on the soft compound rubber tonight. Just ahead of Neb, 10th in points, is Big Block. Big Block is sitting with 92 points. Very high likelihood that Neb will eclipse him tonight. 9th in the championship is Pindaz with 114 points coming in to today's race. Claiming Racer is 8th in points right now, but he has not shown up since his Indianapolis win. He still has 124 points. 7th in the championship is 2 Fuzzball 4267. He is trying to run down his teammate Golden in the championship. He has 132 points coming into today's event. 6th in the championship is Amish Gaming. He has 140 points. That puts him 11 out from our 5th place driver in the championship, GRPK Golden. Golden, another one of the few drivers who have actually shown up to every race this season. He is at 151 points right now. 4th in the championship is NFL Racer 4812. If something catastrophic was to happen to Prius, he might be able to still steal 3rd in the championship from him, but otherwise, NFL is just trying to run defense against Golden. NFL has 168 points coming into today's event. 3rd in the championship is Prius Killer 8110. Once this race is over, we anticipate that mathematically the championship will be over for him. He has 197 points coming in today. His goal is to just steal podiums and maybe a win in one of these last 3 races. Scored Buffalo was able to make it to today's event. He'll be starting dead last. He has 239 points coming in to tonight's event. He is coming off the back of 3 straight podiums, but he has finished behind maybe in 2 of those events. And your championship leader and pole setter for tonight's race is Maybe Racing. Maybe is off of back-to-back wins. He has not finished off of the podium since race 4. He has 249 points coming into tonight's event. Now it would be 250, including the pole position as well, as the field begins to double up as they come out of the corkscrew. 12 drivers for tonight's event. It's going to be Maybe and Prius on row 1, NFL Racer and PTG Neb on row 2. On row 3, it will be Amish Gaming and 2 Fuzzball. Row 4 will have Pindaz and Big Block. Row 5 will be Neesmorph and Dr. Pepper, please. And the final row will be Scored Buffalo and GRPK Golden. Buffalo is going to have to rapidly rush his way through the field here at a race that last season maybe took the victory in unopposed. Coming out of the final corner, they'll be taking the green flag momentarily here as the field is all doubled up. Green flag, and we are underway here at Laguna Seca. Immediately going off and underway as they come up the hill, and now will fire down into the Andretti hairpin. And we've already had a DNF before we even got to the start-finish line. That's NFL, who lags out immediately. I'm not sure if they're going to do a lobby reset to try and bring NFL Racer back in or not. They may have to do a lobby reset to give him a chance to get in. He didn't even get an opportunity to take the green flag. And yes, it looks like there will be a lobby reset for NFL. He's going to feel very, very relieved at that, but a frustrating thing, to say the least, to have such a disconnect right before you even take the green flag in one of these events. All right, so while we wait for NFL to return, we'll take a Twitch-mandated ad break. We'll return momentarily here at Laguna Seca. Ah, okay, that's interesting. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Laguna Seca as the field is loading onto the circuit for attempt number 2. Seems like our grid ordering has been a little bit borked, so we're probably going to have to take a little bit longer getting the grid properly ordered up, but we do know some things for certain. For instance, we know that our pole sitter is maybe racing in that Exalta number 1. He has finally gotten back to the championship lead after a very slow start to the season. It's taken him 9 races, but he's finally in the championship lead. He is leading by 10, technically 11 points coming in to tonight's event. Second place starter is going to be Prius Killer, who is on a fantastic run of multiple straight podiums. Also had a win at Road America earlier. He would love to see if he could steal another victory tonight, if at all possible. Then in third is going to be NFL Racer in that American-styled machine, that Dodge-branded machine. Be interested to see what he can do, because he's not really had the pace that we saw him have in some of the races last season. He's just trying to limp his way home to a 4th place finish in points against his rival in the points, Golden. He is starting well ahead of Golden today. He's going to be sharing that road with PTG Neb. Neb had a great time in the first round of qualifying, not so good in the second round though. He said that the softs have a lot of pace, but on the harder compound tires, the understeer is ungodly. Behind him is Amish. Amish is still looking for his first podium result of the season tonight. Hopefully it can come for him tonight. Then alongside him will be 2 Fuzzball. Recently he has been outperforming team owner Golden in this run. He had a top 5 result last week at Watkins Glen. Be curious to see what Fuzzball can do here at Laguna Seca. Then you'll have Big Block, who is in that all-black Cadillac in number 87. He'll be sharing the road with Pindaz, who's been absent for the last few races of the season. Then after that, you're going to have no, that's Dr. Pepper. It looks like he slid off circuit somehow. He is in that Goth Girl Echelon machine. We'll talk a little bit more about that later if I remember to. Then you will have GRPK Golden just a little bit up the road here in the black and yellow machine. He's trying to close down on NFL Racer for results. At the back of the grid will be Neesmorph. Just awful timing in the first round qualifying, and he spins out. Neesmorph completely spins out on his own on the pace lap. He'll have to rush to catch the rear of the grid, and Dr. Pepper is paying as well, so he may have wrecked the car under the pace lap. So we have had 2 different incidents on the pace lap here. And the field is still single file, so we are not going green this time by. Neesmorph has to pit, as does Dr. Pepper. So this race starts under a yellow flag condition tonight, as we've had 2 different incidents here under the pace lap. So Dr. Pepper and Neesmorph both have incidents and will have to be knocked to the rear of the grid. So this does help out Golden and Scored Buffalo a bit. They both move up a position each. Real quickly, let's take this extra pace lap to look at the fuel numbers on our entire field here. Maybe he has 61% in the fuel tank right now. Prius Killer, he is running with a fuel tank at about 50% at the moment. NFL Racer, who is in 3rd position, he is going to be starting with a bit over 50% into his fuel tank. PTG Neb, who is starting in 4th, he's going to be starting with about 54% in his tank. Amish, who is back here in the 5th spot, he is going to have 69% in his fuel tank, a little less than that when we get to the line. 2 Fuzzball, who is going to be starting in 6th. He's going to be running with a full fuel tank early on here, so keep an eye on that, because that means he might be able to shorten up his pit stops later. Big Block starting back here in 7th. Also, another driver with basically a full fuel tank, Pindaz, who is just a little bit behind. He's now moved up to 8th. He's going to have 52% in his fuel tank as we come to the green flag. Golden, who is going to be here in 9th, he's going to have 57%, so I think he's probably started with about 60% in his fuel tank. And then we look at Scored Buffalo in 10th position. He has a full fuel tank, so Scored Buffalo is likely going to try and stay out as long as he can to try and get some laps in clean air late when the tires are burning up. Still waiting for Dr. Pepper and Neesmorph to catch the rear of the grid, but I imagine we're going to be going green this time by. Yes, as the field is now beginning to double up as they come out of the corkscrew. Technically, this is a lap under yellow, so we have broke our 3-race streak of races with no yellow flags. We have now had a yellow flag for the first time in a long time. Maybe nearly goes off circuit there, our pole sitter. But yeah, it does not look like Neesmorph will catch the rear of the grid. Dr. Pepper will just barely catch the rear of the field as they come out of the final corner and down to the start-finish line. So Neesmorph's bad day is starting on an awful foot, but 11 other cars will take the green flag. We are underway here at Laguna Seca. Side by side between Maybe and Prius as they go down the line, but Maybe has the idealized choice. As long as he doesn't botch the corner, he should be able to do it. He gets a little bit sideways there, nose of the car, but Prius backs out of it. Neb's trying to get aggressive. That's NFL trying to get aggressive around the outside. He has to back out of it. The top 4 go right back to the positions they started in. then maybe immediately opening up a gap on Prius Killer, and NFL is now harassing Prius. Again, NFL does have an outside shot at third in the championship if Prius ends up missing a race or two or has a series of awful finishes to end his season off, but NFL's real focus just has to be as close to the podium as possible to try and beat Golden in the points, and that is PTG Neb running in fourth. He's kind of the wild card right now. He is a teammate with both maybe and NFL in the teams championship. Not really talked a lot about that, and that's a big dive bomb by Neb. That's an incredible dive bomb, and he ran right into the rear. Prius now gets hit by NFL. He's off circuit, now hemorrhaging positions. Big, bold move, and while he didn't take anyone else off circuit, he could not handle the car because the weight was sprung in a weird way, and now he falls behind. Two fuzzballs under threat from Big Block now. NFL has actually lost a huge chunk of time, and Neb got hit again by Big Block going through the final corner. Neb is just being absolutely ganged up on circuit now. He's now fallen to sixth in just a single racing lap. And that's not it. That's Amish, who is just behind. He's looking to maybe make something happen. Amish looking at the outside. Neb holding the inside line as tight as he can. Pulls up back alongside Big Block here in the hairpin. He'll get back by Big Block now as they come out of the turn 2 hairpin. Now down to turns 3 and 4. Neb has to set his sight onto Fuzzball back ahead once again. But at the head of the field, it is maybe Racing, who's just dropped tires into the dirt. That's not going to help him, and that is Prius running behind. Now, the thing with Laguna and Seca is that the straights aren't super long. You can get a decent amount of draft in total, but it's not going to help you as much because you just don't have very long straightaways here. Coming back uphill. This is a straightaway you could run side by side in, but you don't want to be side by side coming into the corkscrew under any circumstances. Prius within 0.4 of a second as they come into the corkscrew right now. I have a feeling that maybe might be on a harder compound tire. He's only at 12.5% wear right now. I look at Prius Killer, he is at 14, so no, they're actually relatively even, and NFL is now hemorrhaging positions. He's fallen back behind Neb. He's gone back to the 5th spot now. Not really sure what may have caused NFL to fall off. Maybe he had a bad run through the corkscrew. Amish now trying to work on Big Block while keeping his teammate Pindaz behind him. That is GRPK Golden back there in 9th. Scored Buffalo in 10th, most notably. He has not made any significant progress through the field, but he doesn't have the softer tires. He is on a harder compound tire. So again, he is definitely committing to running long on track. We have a fight at the front of the field, and Prius goes off! Prius goes off between the short chute of turns 3 and 4. And he's still sideways and losing a huge chunk of time. Therein lies the problem with Laguna Seca. For Indycars, there's not really a lot of opportunities to make overtakes happen. It is such a slow circuit, but still very downforce sensitive. When you get caught behind another driver, you immediately lose the nose of the car, and it's very easy to get dragged off circuit there. Prius is lucky that he was able to get the car back on circuit and ended up plowing it into the wall like he was an Elio Castroneves or Paul Tracy. PTG Neb has spun out in the corkscrew, just as I was about to say. He has recovered to 3rd. PTG Neb has had a spin in the corkscrew as he's now trying to get back underway. So this works out for Golden and Buffalo. Golden moves up to 7th. 8th is going to be Buffalo now. Big Block also seems to have lost a lot of ground trying to avoid some of that issue also, but it doesn't look like there's any damage to either of these drivers. They'll both be able to continue. This also moves Fuzzball now up in the 4th spot on track. Again, Fuzzball is trying to run down his teammate Golden in the points, try to show that, hey, I'm just as good, if not better than you. Prius is just about caught maybe again, but it looks to me like Prius is struggling with the rear of the car, sliding out a lot more than Maybe is. Maybe is just kind of planted around most of the circuit. If anything, Maybe is driving a bit like the car is understeering for him tonight. So NFL now breaks about a 1.5-second gap between himself and your 4th place driver to Fuzzball, and that will be Amish gaining back here in 5th. He has now cleared Pindaz and scored Buffalo, has gotten by Golden, so Buffalo finally starting to make some moves, but he is currently 10 seconds out of the lead. And again, that was with 2 laps, not 1 lap, but 2 laps of pacing early on, and Buffalo has basically lost over 2 seconds a lap to our leaders. Yes, some of it is that he is being held up by traffic, but it's not looking really good for Buffalo on this alternate strategy. For him to stay in the championship hunt, he needs to be finishing as high as possible to try and take points off of Maybe. Remember, while Maybe is leading the points coming into tonight's race, there is a drop round feature. For Scored Buffalo, he's already missed a race this season, so he does not have to worry about losing points at the end of the year. Maybe is still losing points at the end of the year. So just because Maybe's taking over the points lead doesn't mean it's over. But now Buffalo is under threat from Golden. Golden gets to his inside, side by side between 2 of them, and Golden is going to clear Buffalo in the braking zone going into turn number 2. They have a slide by Golden just as he completed it, and Buffalo gets back to his inside, and coming out of the hairpin, Buffalo is back in front. But in that fight now, this duo is 11 seconds out of the lead. Prius has closed back down on Maybe. He's within 7/10 of Maybe at this stage of the event. 24% tire wear for Maybe right now. A look at Prius, who's right behind him. He is at 27% on the tire wear, but Prius also has a lighter fuel load. If Prius can stay on track and continue to hound Maybe, but the big problem is, if these two are relatively close in pace like it seems, there's just no way in hell you make an overtake here. Another driver has just gone off circuit going uphill. That is Big Block, who has had an off just before they got into the climb uphill. It doesn't look like he hit anything, but that drops him to 10th spot behind PTG Neb. Neb has actually just gotten by GRPK Golden in his own right, so now Neb is going to try and run down Scored Buffalo for 7th position. And the top two now within 6/10 of each other as they come down into the hairpin this time by. Prius goes way deep into the hairpin, really shucking the car in and trying to slide the rear end around to get him more rotation on exit. Between the two of them, Prius is absolutely abusing his tires, trying to keep up with Maybe. That's arguably been Prius's biggest weakness, but it's not really a weakness as much as it is that Maybe is just ridiculously good on very worn-out tires. That has been his biggest strength, not just in this series, but basically every single series that FEC runs has a very similar tuning setup, and Maybe is very, very comfortable with that tuning setup and able to run tires on that setup deep into the 60s or even 70% wear range. No one else has really been able to match him on that. Prius is matching him on pace, but once these tires really start falling off, Prius is just going to lose so much time to Maybe. Maybe botched the run, though, going into the carousel that time by, and just lost 3/10 there. Thing is, that puts Prius right into the aero wash of Maybe right away. Immediately, Prius drops a tire into the dirt there. Neb and Scored Buffalo are having a bit of a fight of their own as they come down through the corkscrew, and Neb gets back in front of Scored Buffalo. So this harder compound tire is not working at all for Buffalo in these early laps. He is losing so much time just fighting. He is passing and game pass and passing and game pass for these positions here. Amish is up to 5th, still looking for a podium, but not anywhere near to what he needs to be in order to steal that. Maybe and Prius are scooting away in the distance right now with no real issue between them. Prius might be a little bit faster for a single lap, but I think the main thing that's helping him is that he has draft, so even when he loses time, he can catch the draft and close right in on Maybe. Maybe has made a few small mistakes, but they've not been big enough to let that 76 machine get alongside. Uphill now, and then it will be a fast left-hander, and then they come rushing uphill once again to the highest point of the circuit before they dive into the corkscrew once again. Again, not really an ideal overtaking spot unless the driver ahead is way off circuit. This time it looks like Prius, again, a little bit faster than Maybe, going through the corkscrew, but he's put right into Maybe's aero wash, and there's just not a lot you can do in the aero wash. And again, aero wash in Forza does not work quite the same way it does in real life, but the effects are relatively similar. Because you are in somebody's draft, doesn't matter if you're in a straight line or in a corner, the game automatically pulls you to go faster. You are going faster through the corners than you normally are. That causes you to burn up tire life and lose a little bit of grip because you are going at speed higher than what you normally do. It's not the same as real life aero wash, but the overall effects are relatively similar. Prius, though, is still hounding Maybe for this top spot right now as they come through turn 3, and Prius dumps his tires off into the dirt coming through turn 3. That is the issue of aero wash in this game. All right, in 4th position, Amish has actually gotten by to Fuzzball for 4th spot on track. He is at 35% tire wear right now to Fuzzball, who runs right behind, is at 40% actually. So Fuzzball seems to be burning up his tires a little bit faster than Amish. So this track is really going to favor drivers who are good at managing their tires. This is how Maybe easily dominated this race last season. I think he led 90% of the laps in this race last season. Might be on track to do the same thing tonight as well, unless Scored Buffalo on this alternate strategy can pull a wild rabbit out of his hat. Now, Buffalo is only at 26% tire wear right now. For comparison, your leader, Maybe Racing, who is now starting to pull away from Prius Killer, he is at 39% tire wear right now. I think Maybe is just outright beating Scored Buffalo, not just in pace, but in tire life as well. Now, some of the fights are starting to break up, but not all of them. PTG Neb is trying to close in on Pindaz to get back into the top half of the field now. That is Buffalo farther back there. Golden has slipped well down the grid. He is now back to the 10th spot. So he may have had an off of his own, as he has a big slide coming onto the front straightaway. But he's also only at 36% wear right now. So he's doing a slightly better job managing his tires, but just does not have any pace tonight. So now Neb catches Pindaz in the short straight between turns 3 and 4. This little straightaway here is a good opportunistic overtaking spot. But you have to make a big lunge into the braking zone, and Neb does not seem to have the confidence, but Pindaz is wide through the corner. Neb looks to his inside, but can't get alongside. Now, as next left-hander, you don't really want to be side-by-side through here, but if Pindaz is wide and Neb gets the run, that's what's happening. Neb gets the run side-by-side as they come uphill, but Neb is smart enough. He knows he's not smart enough. He's going to go deep, and he slides the rear down to try and not run to the rear of Pindaz. Pindaz holds station. Neb got a run, but it was not enough of a run for him to bully Pindaz into submission going into the corkscrew, so Pindaz holds on to 6th spot for a little bit longer. Neb trying to recover from a spin in the corkscrew now. Has still scored Buffalo farther back there. He has fallen about 20 seconds out of the lead with a span of 10 racing laps, so he is basically losing about 2 seconds a lap to Maybe at the moment, who is clicking off laps in clean air. Again, alternate tire strategies is the big thing to consider between those two. And now here comes a move. Neb to the inside of Pindaz, side by side. Pindaz on the outside, Neb on the inside. Pindaz going to try and wrap around the outside. Neb gets on the curbs, and they make a little bit of contact. Neb's on the curbs again. Neb's going to be on the outside as they come into this hard left-hander. Pindaz goes deep. Neb's going to try and cross him over. Gets back alongside him as they come uphill. And he'll complete the overtake before they get into the subsequent corner. Neb up to the 6th spot now. Well, this first quarter of this race has been pretty racy, I would say. Neb now back up into the 6th position. He is about 2 seconds out from Fuzzball at the moment. And Fuzzball has totally lost touch with Amish at this stage of the race. Prius is holding steady about 1.25 seconds behind Maybe, but no longer close enough to really fight Maybe for that result, especially as the tires are starting to burn off here at Laguna Seca. It's going to be a long time until the leaders end up catching lap traffic. We're likely going to see pit stops before that happens. And speaking of pit stops, for the drivers who started on the softer compound tire, Maybe leads them. They're almost at 50% wear right now. That means for drivers like Prius and NFL, they're definitely at 50% wear at the moment. Again, we had 2 laps under yellow instead of 1, and Maybe has a bit of a run off there on the run uphill. He'll lose quite a bit of time uphill through there, I'd imagine. That looks like he's going to lose about 2/10 to Prius in the process there. But Prius is just dealing with such massive tire wear, he's not really close enough to take advantage of it. So Maybe can afford to be sloppy right now. His main rival does not look like it's going to be Prius, because Prius can't keep up over the full tire run. His rival is scored on alternate strategy, and right now we don't really know where those two will end up in relation to each other later in the event. Down the front straightaway now, once again, for Maybe. So if it's taken him what would basically be the equivalent of 12 racing laps to get to about 50% tire wear, 52% tire wear, he's probably going to be able to go to about lap 15. He doesn't have to, but he could probably go to about lap 15, I'd imagine. If he does that, he can make this race a nice, simple 3-stop strategy. Just put on softs for 4 different stints. Start the race on softs, run about 15 laps, run softs, run softs, run softs. For Buffalo, who threw on the mediums, he's trying to cut out a pit stop. Remember, the pit lane at Laguna, you have to take the entire pit lane exit. Pit stops are very, very costly in time around here. There is a possibility, however small, that you could get a good result by cutting out a pit stop here, but the thing is, you will be slow in terms of lap time. Fuzzball has now fallen behind PTG Neb, so Neb back into the top 5 results, top 5 positions now, and Pindaz can now see Fuzzball ahead. So Fuzzball, good speed and aggression early on, but as he hits that big yellow sausage curb on the inside, Fuzzball's biggest problem, he has really pushed those tires to their limit. Yeah, 60% already as he comes down to the corkscrew now. It continues to hemorrhage time. It will be a long time before Neb catches Amish here in 4th. NFL runs in 3rd position, kind of stuck in no man's land. No one ahead of him, no one behind him. And Fuzzball and Pindaz are pitting this lap. So Fuzzball and Pindaz want to pit now. They want to get onto some softer tires earlier in the event rather than later. Dr. Pepper runs just a little bit ahead, and he's morphed on track by about 4 seconds at the moment. This now also puts Scored Buffalo up in the 6th spot. He is about 4 seconds behind Neb. He's just clicking off laps on this harder compound tire right now. Again, we think that Buffalo is trying to cut out a pit stop and hoping that that will get him the result that he needs. Well, he did not show a lot of raciness early on, but that's just because he's locked onto that harder compound tire. Everyone ahead of him running the softs right now. Golden now moves up into the 8th position as well. Fuzzball and Pindas still have not come out of pit lane. They might end up behind Neesmorphed and maybe even Dr. Pepper when it comes down to it here. Neesmorph and Dr. Pepper still out on track right now. Neesmorph, his tires are at 43%, so he's on the mediums by the looks of it. And then Dr. Pepper, who's running a little bit behind him, 39%. So he's also on the medium compound tires. Prius is now pitted out of 2nd spot. So Prius pitting this time by. He was the one who went 15 laps. He's really closer to 14 racing laps. He'll be joined by NFL Racer. He'll be joined by Amish Gaming 23 as well. Might even get joined by PTG Neb. He is joined by Neb now. So Scored Buffalo will now have completely clean track. He'll be able to pass most of those drivers, but Buffalo has a bit of an off-track excursion there. Bad news for Maybe, though, is that this means he may end up catching traffic before he makes his pit stop. He is trying to work on a positive tire delta. He is 24 seconds ahead of Scored Buffalo right now. Thing is, he's gone this extra lap. That is great and all, but he doesn't have to. There's no reason for him to really push this tire life advantage. He could have pitted at the same time as everyone else, still maintained his advantage. Now, there's actually a risk that Prius Killer, by virtue of gaining on the softer compound tires a lap earlier, might be able to undercut Maybe in the pit stop strategy today. Downhill for Maybe. He still has 11% in the fuel tank. He's at 64% wear. Surely he would come in this time just due to the tire fall off. If you wanted to make it a 2-stop event running only the soft tire compounds, you'd want to run these tires about 19 laps. About 18, 19 laps. And again, we did have an entire extra lap under yellow early on, so that would help Maybe out with that. Is he trying to go on a 2-stopper, trying to beat Scored Buffalo by running the same number of pit stops, but doing it all on the softer compound tires? Golden in the pit lane, so he is going to go a lap down. Dr. Pepper and Big Block also go a lap down, and Maybe is off. Maybe had a tire drop-off circuit there. Buffalo's only now across the start-finish line, though, but Maybe is slow. He's still driving the car in anger, but you can tell that those tires have fallen off. He's at 67% wear now. Has he pushed it too far? There are still about 39 laps left in the event. It could be that Scored Buffalo is going to go medium, medium, soft, and Maybe is going to go soft, medium, soft. He'll swap out a medium stint for a soft stint, potentially. Again, we know he's good at making the tires last far longer than anyone else here, and that's an instant between those two. Now it's Neesmorph and PTG Neb who have had an instant going down the hill, coming out of the corkscrew. They had just completed their pit stops as well, and Maybe pits this time by. So Maybe pit that time by. Neesmorph still has not yet made his first stop. Neb already has made his first stop, trying to break a wrap around the outside. Can he get by him here? No, he's still stuck behind Neesmorph for the moment. Now down into the Andretti hairpin around the outside. Big dive, and Neb gets by Neesmorph there. Dr. Pepper makes another pit stop now, and Scored Buffalo is going to inherit this lead as he has now caught GRPK Golden. He is about to put Golden a lap. Golden's just now got back on the lead lap, and now Buffalo is going to put Golden a lap down here. Bit of a swerve from Golden, and he goes off. Golden goes off in the hairpin. Not unbearably off, but that puts him back a lap down, and Maybe still in pit lane, still losing a huge chunk of time to Scored Buffalo. Again, the big interest is going to be Maybe versus Prius Killer. Prius pitted 2 laps earlier than Maybe. He's had plenty of time to get these tires up to temperature. What can he do against Maybe here? You can see Maybe coming down through the big bend that lets him cut the turn 2 hairpin. Prius is going to have a run on Maybe, and Prius is through. Prius has gotten by Maybe. Prius has gotten by Maybe. But again, the big thing, these two, Maybe is going to have a tire life advantage over Prius, but Maybe's tire life advantage isn't going to have as much of an impact because Prius is basically dead on for splitting this race into even parts. Maybe, we don't really know what his strategy is, but if he's also looking to make the same number of pit stops as Prius, well, Prius is just critically come out ahead of Maybe now. Maybe he has to get his tires warmed up, and they're probably going to be warmed up just as he gets under the braking zone here, coming into the corkscrew. The thing is, maybe he spent most of this race up in front or just running defense. He's not had to pass drivers roughly at his level. Now he's going to have to do that, and he is now 24 seconds out from Scored Buffalo, who still has several more laps until he makes a stop. Yeah, I could see Scored Buffalo easily going to the 25-lap mark if he so chooses, depending on how deep he wants to push these tires. He's at 51% wear right now. If you want to make this race on only 2 stops, making these medium tires work all the way through, or close to all the way through, you take 3 into 56, that would be 1, drop to 2, about 17 laps-ish. No, that wouldn't be 17. Drop to 2. Yeah, 18 laps, roughly. So maybe he's a little shy of making it on 2 stops, but Scored is well on his way to making it on just a 2-stop affair here. And the longer he stays out in these mediums, the more aggressively he can push when he jumps onto a softer compound tire later. And Prius critically ahead of Maybe. Now, Maybe will have the tire advantage. He can pressure Prius as much as he wants, but overtaking is a very difficult game here at Laguna Seca. Not to say it can't happen. We've seen several overtakes already today, but it is a very difficult game to play tonight at this circuit. Down through the corkscrew once again. We're going to go ahead and ride on board for a flying lap with Maybe Racing, give you an idea what a flying lap looks like with our pole sitter and our points lead here at Laguna Seca. As he tries to run Prius Killer down, we will be back momentarily here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, here in California. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here at Laguna Seca. That is your leader, Scored Buffalo, going by. And just in front of him, we saw Dr. Pepper here have a big off! Oh my goodness, a humongous accident there! And that Echelon-sponsored machine has just had a humongous off at the top of the mountain. The car is absolutely destroyed. If the physics were just a little bit more realistic, he would have gone right over the top like it was 1999. A gigantic accident for Dr. Pepper. It looked like he had a bit of a slide off circuit coming up the mountain, and I guess the brakes were already damaged or something. That car did not look like it was stopping at all, and it flew off in the air and hit nose first into the tire barriers. He's going to be able to limp it back to the pit road by the looks of it. So Scored Buffalo leads. And there's no sign that that warranted a yellow flag, apparently. So it looks like we are staying green right now. And it looks like while we were focused on that, Maybe Racing has gotten ahead of Prius Killer. So even though Prius had the position, it was not enough. He let Maybe get back by him. So Maybe is competent enough to get by Prius. Does Prius have what it takes to get back by? I don't think so. Again, Prius is now going to be running with a tire deficit that he will be paying earlier than Maybe and can turn a few more laps on the a few laps on softer tires. Well, Maybe will be on a harder compound, more worn out tire compound. But it does seem like between these two, Maybe has Prius's number. And while this is happening, Maybe has gone off! Maybe catches traffic, and he is caught off guard by Golden in the Formula Lap traffic, and Prius goes by. And Prius goes by something big for the second time this season. Maybe throws away the lead after being completely distracted and held up by traffic. Technically, that wasn't the lead, but that was the fight for the race's overall lead. And now Prius is going to be the one who has to work his way by Golden. He dives to the inside. Golden will be side by side between these two as they come uphill this time by. Scored Buffalo leads by about 15.5 seconds over Prius and Maybe. But again, we expect that Scored Buffalo is going to be pinning nearly any lap now. He is at 63% wear. Could he try a single stop? Well, if he wants to make this a single stop affair, he'd want to stay out here until lap 28. I don't think you would want to go another 5 laps on this set of rubber. He's going to have to come at the end of this lap. But the thing is, Buffalo has gone so long the tires now, he's going to have about 33 laps left. You could potentially just do soft. He has run his time on the mediums. He could throw on the soft tires, open up new pace. And if he's in relatively clean air from now to the end of this race, that could be catastrophic for most of the rest of the field here. Maybe has fallen behind Prius Killer, but Prius now is the one who has to navigate traffic. He gets by Dr. Pepper without too much issue right now. So Prius may have an actual shot at this race win. The question, though, Scored Buffalo clicking off laps in clean air. They are slower, but that's just because he is on a harder compound tire. What can Prius do against Maybe or Scored? The big thing in the championship, imagine if this race win goes in Prius's favor. That means that the amount that the championship gap can open or close is much, much less. Again, it is a 10-point swing between winning and finishing second. If that 10-point swing has kind of been the big talk basically since the Indianapolis 250 race earlier this season. If Prius takes that win, the gap between points results are closer to only 5 points or even 3 points at some cases. In that case, you start asking, well, then if you're just a nickel and dime race right now, Maybe has a on paper advantage, but realistically a bit of a disadvantage because again, Maybe still is going to lose points at the end of the season due to the way that the drop rounds play out. Right now, Maybe is not really making great ground closing back in on Prius. He is really struggling with traffic. It's ironic because we think back to Mid-Ohio for first 2/3 of that race. Traffic was Maybe's strong point. He was cutting into Buffalo's lead via traffic. He got the lead on pit stops and navigating traffic, but then afterwards he kind of got a little bit sloppy and traffic cost him that win at Mid-Ohio. Buffalo is now pitted this time by. So Prius, coming around the final corner, will go into the lead and will officially lead laps for the first time tonight. So our top 3 drivers in the points all get a chance to lead at least 1 lap today. And we've had another driver go off, going uphill there. That is, I believe, our 8th place driver, Neb, who has had an incident going off circuit, coming uphill to the corkscrew. No damage on the car. He should be able to continue. That puts him behind Pindaz and Fuzzball all over again. So where is Buffalo going to be in relation to everyone else? Is he going to be clear of the likes of Fuzzball or Pindaz? Well, coming up the straightaway right now will be to Fuzzball by the looks of it. And he'll clear Buffalo without any issue there. What of Pindaz? And Pindaz has a little crew that he's going to be fighting with. Oh, and that's a sideways moment there. That is Kneesmorph having a spin. Coming up over the turn 1 hill, and the rear of the car is destroyed. He has backed it into the outside wall by the looks of it. Kneesmorph has backed his car into the outside wall, coming up over turn 1. No damage to the engine, but a lot of aerodynamic and braking and suspension damage to Kneesmorph. I don't think that's going to warrant a yellow, though. But that is going to make this day rough for Kneesmorph. This might put him a lap down, if not more, and that might give Dr. Pepper a shot at maybe getting this spot over Kneesmorph here. Meanwhile, in the top positions, Maybe runs about 2 seconds and some change behind Prius. Does not have the draft to really help him, but again, Maybe in theory should have an advantage on the tires. His tires are at 35.8% wear right now. Look at Prius Killer up front. He is at 47% wear on his tires right now. Farther back in the field is NFL in 3rd. Amish runs in 4th spot right now. Still looking for a podium, but it's not looking like it's going to happen today unless he catches and beats NFL somehow. And even then, Scored is kind of the wild card. Scored may still have something to make this happen. NFL at 46% wear on his tires right now. Look at Amish, who runs in the 4th spot at the moment. He's only at 43%, so Amish is doing a better job than NFL on tire management right now, struggling to get by the lap traffic of GRPK Golden. And this would mean that, once again, 2 Fuzzball on track to outscore his team owner, Golden. Very interesting direction there. Pindaz jumping into the pit lane this time by, or actually I should say jumping out of the pit lane this time by. The gap between Prius and Maybe has now shrunk to about 1 3/4 of a second. And Scored Buffalo clicking off laps back here in the 7th position right now. He put in a lot of fuel. Did he put on another set of mediums potentially? Thing is, if he's put on another set of mediums, I think Maybe is likely trying to run softs now. Either he makes another set of stops and then Scored's back in the fray, but maybe he's gone long enough on his tires, he might try to run a set of mediums late in the event and just use the track position advantage he has in his favor. And that was Maybe who's heading off coming up the hill. Now he's fallen 3 seconds out from Prius. So maybe everything's starting to slip away from him now. Pindaz looking ahead at the likes of as NFL there, and then there's also lap traffic of Dr. Pepper. So about halfway through this race, and already a lot of drivers a lap down, and there's lots of things going on the circuit, but actual mano-y-mano battles on track have kind of dissolved. Now people are all just kind of catching each other on alternate strategies or catching drivers who are trying to recover from accidents here. Niesmorph is 2 laps down right now. Dr. Pepper is about another half lap behind Niesmorph at the moment. So Niesmorph for now holding on to 11th spot over Dr. Pepper. So your leader is Prius Killer, looking for what would be his 2nd win of the season. Last time a series in FEC had a driver who won more than a single race that wasn't the trio of Maybe, Scored, and Amish. Well, it was actually earlier this year in the Corvette series. That was me, actually, in the Corvette Challenge. But before that, you have to go back to the IFEA NASCAR Championship. And that one was stolen by Dino, the championship was, but it was Tactical Fallout who actually won multiple races that season. It had been a 3-way title fight there between Maybe, Tactical, and Dino for that championship. Going into the finale then. Amish now pitting out of the 4th spot. But interestingly enough, NFL did not pit. So Amish got to 52.8% wear and said, all right, I've had enough. But NFL, despite being on more worn tires, willing to truck it out a bit longer. So NFL going to stay out for an extra lap. He's going to lose time to Amish, unsurprisingly, because he is on more worn out tires. This in-lap's going to be very, very slow. The thing is, though, he could have a very significant positive tire delta to the end. When he goes ahead and pits and comes out, he'll only have about 27 laps left. You can make down 2 more softs with not as much tire fall off as what we think Amish would be dealing with. Buffalo now up into the 5th spot, and he sees PTG Neb just ahead of him. But Neb at 57% wear on the tires. I don't know if Buffalo's aware of that, and Prius is paying out of the lead this time by. Prius paying out of the lead, so this will give the lead over to Maybe as expected. Now the question is Prius going to end up in clean air or not? As Maybe goes back to the lead here. Maybe he's kind of be able to stay out here for 2, maybe 4 laps longer than Prius. NFL is also going to pit this time by. To the inside of Neb is Scored Buffalo side by side as they come up the hill. Scored completes the overtake. The Scored's now starting to come alive. He is already at 20% wear on his tires, but I think that Scored is running softs and might be willing to throw on soft tires again a little bit later. So Scored really opening up the pace at this stage of the event, but he is still 42.6 seconds behind Maybe. Yeah, the big question is just going to be, is Maybe going to run an entire extra stop and do all softs at the end, or is he going to throw on the mediums late in the event? If he chooses to throw on mediums late in the event, one small benefit, the track will be rubbered in. The mediums will feel like they have grip closer to the softs, so that could be a advantage in throwing on the mediums at the very end of this race, if that is a strategy that Maybe is going for. Prius, we think, is just trying to cut the race into nice, even thirds, and Scored is going to be well clear of Prius as Prius comes out of the pit lane now. Again, Scored's only made one pit stop thus far. Prius has already made two, and maybe pitting much earlier than anticipated. Maybe is pitting very early. His tires only hit 56%. He still had the fuel to stay out there for a bit longer. Well, there's 26 laps left. When he comes out, he'll have 26 laps left. That could do it if he wants. He could probably throw on the mediums and make them run to the end here. In that case, Scored Buffalo, he'll be taking out a big chunk of time now into the end. But Buffalo has one more stop left. Maybe throwing on what we think is the hardest compound tire now. Well, not the hardest, but the medium compound tire, the harder compound that has been favored. And PTD Nev, most interesting, has ended up ahead of Prius Killer after a pit stop, and this is really holding up Prius. Finally, Prius is going to get by, but being held up by Neb like that might just put this race in the hands of the likes of Scored Buffalo, or maybe, because now Prius is going to be behind them going forward. Coming down into turn 2, Scored Buffalo going around the outside. Will he be clear of maybe? Boy, he is very clear of maybe. It's not even close between the two of them. In fact, Prius also ends up ahead of maybe as well. And maybe is wide immediately in the very first corner. The tires haven't gotten up to temp yet. It's going to take him a little bit of time before those tires get up to temperature. Neb's pit this time, so has Big Block. Again, you pit now, you can probably throw on the mediums and make those stretch to the end of this race tonight. I think Prius is on a strategy that's just all softs all the way through. He's likely committing to an extra stop. Oh boy, Maybe is not looking like he's having a good time, and Scored Buffalo opening the gap on Maybe. So right now, in the championship fight, Scored is starting to take points again. Again, it was an 11-point swing after qualifying was over. 11-point swing in Maybe's favor. If Maybe finishes second, Scored wins, Maybe leads the championship by only a single point, but if Maybe finishes third and he can't get back by Prius by the end of this, that gap goes to a 4-point deficit against Maybe. And Scored retakes the points lead. And again, there are only 2 races after this. One at Sebring, which will be next week, and we'll be covering that. And then I will sadly not be able to cover the event at Miami for the season finale. I'll actually be in Florida myself that time. But there is a very serious shot that this championship fight goes down to the finale here. The thing is, though, we know that Scored is going to have to pit one more time before this is over. Prius, we're pretty confident he has to pit once, if not twice. And then maybe, if he's throwing on the medium compound tires like we believe, he should not have to pit again for the rest of this run today. All right. Well, we spent a lap on board with Maybe, but let's spin a lap on board with Scored Buffalo. He's on some Freshers tires, see some traffic ahead. We're going to see what flying lap is like on board the driver who won 3 races earlier in the season. We'll be back momentarily here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to WeatherTech Race Laguna Seca. And if you were able to see it during ad break, while we were on board with Scored Buffalo, Big Block and Golden side by side going into the carousel, not in the carousel, sorry, into the corkscrew, and Golden ended up losing control of the car, looping in around through there for the second time today. So that has now put Golden 10th, a lap down. And again, his teammate, too, Fuzzball, he's not having the fastest day ever, but Fuzzball is looking to well outscore his team owner again. So Fuzzball's really coming into his own in this series relative to his teammate. And while this has all happened, Prius Killer has actually closed in a small amount on Buffalo. But again, we think that between Buffalo and Prius, we think that Prius is likely making one more stop, maybe two. Buffalo, we know, has one more stop to make. Maybe here in third spot is the wild card. We think he is not going to stop again for the rest of this race. He is just trying to nurse a gap to the field to the end of this event. NFL Racer runs in fourth position, just kind of stuck in no man's land. He has ended up ahead of Amish Gaming, mind you. Now, Amish has shown a little bit better tire management and has had pace relatively comparable to NFL, but I don't really think he's going to be able to catch him later in the event. Fuzzball seems locked in 6th. Neb is kind of the wild card because he's kind of been all up and down. He's been very fast, but been very mistake prone. He honestly has podium position pace, but has not been able to keep his machine on track worth a dang. Then behind him is Pindaz, stabilized in the 8th spot. Pindaz spent all of last season trying to get a 5th place, a top 5 finish. Never came all season long for him. But he did finish top 5 in the points just by virtue of attending every race last season. This season, he's missed several races and has also just not had that pace. It's just not been a good time for Pindaz, but he is still, for now at least, on the lead lap. Dr. Pepper paying out of the 12th spot. 9th right now is Big Block, who's just recently got a lap down. He's going to be the next lap driver that Prius, and maybe we'll have to figure out a way by running that all-black 87 machine. Then behind him, 10th is Golden, who we just talked about, had another spin while fighting with Big Block for position out there in the top of the corkscrew. Then Neesmorph has slipped back to 11 after, we don't know how, but he lost control going over the turn 1 hill and backed it into the outside wall. That accident has trapped him 2 laps down. He's still a lap ahead of Dr. Pepper, but still a lap behind Golden and Big Block. He would need multiple yellows to get back onto the lead lap. And with how spread out this field has gotten, and with how stingy the officials have been with throwing the yellow flag, I don't see a yellow happening. I think that Neesmorph is basically locked into 11th place finish unless somebody farther up has a catastrophic incident or gets a disconnect. A fight for second place is starting to brew as maybe has caught Prius. Prius has had trouble trying to get by Big Block here. Maybe has gotten by Prius twice before in this scenario. Once he lost it though, during pit stops, one time he lost it due to poor traffic navigation. And again, maybe's rival is Scored Buffalo up ahead, who is 5.8 seconds up the road. We think that maybe is on the medium compound tires trying to make those last to the end. It looks like Prius is going to be allowed to get by Big Block without too much issue here. But maybe is going to be held up by Big Block through the turn 2 hairpin. That works things out in Prius's favor a bit longer here. Not really an easy place for a lap car to step aside and let a lead lap driver go through until you get onto this straightaway. And already that gap is opened up to about 0.8 of a second. And maybe actually ends up hitting Big Block behind before finally getting by him. But he is now falling about 0.9 out from Prius. Thing is, maybe has the tire life advantage over Prius. But they are harder compounds, and he drops the tire off into the dirt there. So real quick, as we're within 20 laps at the end of this race, your leader, Scored Buffalo, 56.8% right now. But if he can stretch these tires out to about 16 to go, if he can go to about lap 40, pit then come out, he can run the last 16 laps on another set of softs. This is Prius back here in second spot. He's only at 35% wear. And then maybe here in third, he's at 30% wear. So Prius might also be on a harder compound tire, a medium set. And in that case, he has a gigantic tire life disadvantage compared to maybe. He has a track position advantage, but that is like a lap difference, if not more, between the two of them. And maybe he's already been faster than Prius when they've been on tires at the same age. Now maybe we'll have the tire life advantage over Prius. If these two are not pitting to the end of this race, maybe should easily be able to catch Prius and overtake him in the last 5 laps just due to how extreme the tire fall off will be. So now, here's the thing. Scored Buffalo in first. He's on the softer rubber, but he's not really opened up a gigantic gap over Prius or Maybe. So Prius and Maybe are doing a good job maintaining a decent amount of pace compared to Scored here. When is Scored going to pit? That is the big question. He's at 61.8% wear on these tires. Again, ideally you want to pit at the end of 40, start of 41, just go the last 16 laps on the softs. You can probably make the softs last 16 laps with how rubbered in this track is now. But yeah, now Prius is actually starting to close on Buffalo. And when Buffalo pits, he's going to fall about 47 seconds behind that duo. Now, of course, the big thing is, Maybe he can probably make the tires last to the end. I don't know if Prius will be able to. And even if he does, it may just be technically making it to the end. But if he's at the 75% wear on his tires, he's going to be 5-6 seconds a lap slower than Scored. Scored might still be able to snipe second from Prius by the end of this. Maybe it's kind of the wild card here, but based off of his prior performance, we think that as long as he doesn't get jump scared by lap traffic, he should be able to go to the end. 29% left in the fuel tank for Maybe right now. I look at Prius just ahead of him. He's got 16% in the fuel tank. Prius is at 43% wear. While Maybe his wear, 37%, and that was a stopped car in the corkscrew. It was a stopped car. That was Golden. That's the third time, I think, now he's had an incident in the corkscrew, this time on fresh tires. This just keeps going worse and worse for Golden. He is now 2 laps down. Again, his teammate Fuzzball is 6th on the lead lap still. So Maybe he's probably not going to make it to the end on these tires. And neither is Prius. But they've just both scored Buffalo. Buffalo has pushed these tires to their absolute limit. This is the lap he has to come in for, but he's now been caught. Here comes Prius. He lunges! Prius lunges alongside our top 3 all on top of each other. With 17 laps to go, Prius trying to wrap around the outside. He goes deep. He goes around him. He does it completely, and now Maybe he's trying to follow suit, but Maybe is sideways and Scored is sideways as well. And Scored slips back to the 3rd position now. Prius leads over Maybe, and Prius drops tires in the dirt coming uphill. He's sideways. He's still ahead of Maybe. Maybe pulls up alongside. Side by side the corkscrew. Maybe goes deep, and he blocks. He runs Prius off the ideal racing line. Maybe to the lead now. Maybe has made those tires last an extra lap or so longer. And now Prius is back under threat from Scored. Surely at least Scored will pit this time by. Yes, Scored pits this time by, but Maybe gets by Prius very opportunistically. Incredible set of events there. But now, while Prius and Maybe will be turning laps on these worn tires, Scored will be on fresh softs that should be able to last to the end here. And Scored will be able to click off some great laps while these two continue to run right on top of each other on tires that continue to get worse and worse here. 16 laps to go right now. Again, I imagine Prius will be pitting at the end of this lap. When does Maybe choose to pit? Is he going to pit right away and cover Prius? He still has life on the tires. He still has some fuel in the tank as well. He could pit now and make a slightly shorter pit stop, stay ahead of Prius just because he would not have to put as much fuel in, I'd imagine. That snap is going off, and Maybe goes off in sympathy, and Prius is off as well. That was Neb that they just saw go off there. No, that wasn't Neb. Who was that? That was someone else. Is that Dr. Pepper? Yes, Dr. Pepper was another white car of Dr. Pepper. No damage. He'll be able to continue, but that caught both Prius and Maybe off guard, and they both went off. Prius a little bit worse than Maybe there. And no, Prius is not paying this time by either. So this will be another lap in Buffalo's favor. Now, the thing is, Buffalo right now, 49 seconds behind our top 2. Now, he'll gain a lot of that, if not all of that back, when our top 2 do pit. But they'll be making slightly shorter pit stops, and they'll have fresher tires over Buffalo to the end here. But Maybe has caught traffic, and Buffalo's turning laps in clean air. Maybe catching that green and white machine. Is that Pindaz? It is, and Pindaz moves aside and lets him go and makes contact there with Prius. And Prius goes off in the dirt after that contact. So traffic management now bites Prius and Maybe opens up a bit of a gap. I think he's going to break the draft on Prius now. And now it will be clean track for these two for the next few laps. Scored Buffalo also, though, in what's basically completely clean air. But Niesmorf is coming out of the pit lane now. We think this would likely be his final stop of the night. Where he ends up in relation to Scored could have an impact on stuff. So does either Maybe or Prius pit this time by? 51% wear there for Maybe. He stays out, though. Prius, he's got like 56% wear by now. He's at 58%. He only has 4% left in the tank just because of fuel. Prius will have to pit at the end of this lap. Scored's out there clicking out great laps and clean air compared to these two. NFL now pits out of the third spot. Amish has done a better job managing his tires relative to NFL, but he has lost pace. His pace just hasn't been there. So it looks like NFL is going to be fourth. No way that he ends up coming out of the pit lane ahead of Scored Buffalo here. Very suboptimal run through the corkscrew there for Scored Buffalo. As he fires it off downhill. And the wild thing is, between Maybe, Prius, and Scored, all three of them, I would argue, are still in serious contention for this race victory here. Fuzzball pinged this lap. So does Pindaz. Maybe Racing leads. Prius 1.5 seconds out. So yeah, Prius really just falls off on the very last lap of his tire run. So that's probably why Prius hasn't pitted earlier. He would rather have the tire fall off now rather than on the last lap or two. And that's Prius. He pits now with 14 laps to go. Maybe is still out here, but Prius is pitting with 14 laps to go. We know from the first stand of the race that Maybe can go 14 laps. And while he will have some tire fall off, with how much rubber with how much rubber the track has taken, it shouldn't be that bad. But Maybe he is continuing to click off laps right now, and his tires have wear. He's going to lose time. Now again, by choosing to pit later, he'll be able to get away with a slightly shorter pit stop. Won't have to put as much fuel in the car. But has he waited too long? Because Scored Buffalo is taking all this time clicking off laps in what has been mostly clean air, although he is just about to catch Niesmorf. And Prius Killer still in pit lane right now. Okay, so here's the big question. Where is Prius going to be in relation to Scored as they come down to turn 3? Already, Buffalo crossing the start-finish line. You can see Prius coming into that bend that lets them cut the turn 2 hairpin. So Buffalo is going to be clear of Prius Killer. Now, by how much is the question? Well, not only is he clear, but that's also lap traffic and Niesmorf clear as well. So Buffalo will not have to worry about as much traffic. It's almost completely clean track, and Maybe is pitted this time by. And Prius has caught traffic in the form of Niesmorf. So Prius is the one struggling with traffic management now, and Scored gets to run some laps. Prius just runs right into the rear of Niesmorf. Niesmorf takes the inside line, and Prius goes around the outside now, but already that gap between Scored Buffalo and Prius is about 2 seconds in Buffalo's favor now. Now Prius will have the tire life advantage over Buffalo. He's already at 16% wear on his tires. A look at Prius, who is in third, only at 3% right now, and Maybe is in the pits right now. Maybe was already ahead of Prius, but Prius ended up well behind Buffalo. Where is Maybe going to be in relation to Prius? That is a car off in the turn 2 hairpin. That is Dr. Pepper off in the turn 2 hairpin, but it looks like he's going to get away without issue. Okay, we turn our focus on our top two. Maybe versus Scored. Scored coming down into the Andretti turn 2 hairpin. That is Maybe coming out of the pits just ahead of him. Can Maybe overtake? Can Maybe stay ahead of Scored? He does! Maybe is ahead of Scored, and Scored misses the corner! Scored completely something like a mistake, misses the corner! Maybe critically has a position over Scored! The championship momentum has decisively swung in Maybe's favor. The overcut has not worked all race long until now. Prius is actually closing on Scored again. Again, Scored is at a massive tire disadvantage to Maybe to the end of this race. Maybe is going to have no fall off whatsoever. We know that Scored's going to have at least some level of fall off. The only real thing that Scored has in his favor is that Scored has a little bit less fuel in the tank right now, so he can push a little bit harder with a little bit lighter car for a few laps. But when we get to the last 4 laps of the event, the tire fall off will be enough that will knock Scored out of this fight for the win. But he's got to get up there. He's got to fight with Maybe anyway and hope that maybe that he can get his title rival to make a mistake, make some sort of choke or something like that. To Scored's credit, he jumped onto an alternate strategy right away, and it has put him in a position where he is nearly guaranteed a podium result. But that may not be enough to beat his title rival. Prius still runs in third position. The last two races have finished. Maybe Prius Scored as your 1, 2, 3 finishers. Maybe goes off! No, that wasn't maybe, that was Scored. I'm sorry, Scored goes off there. But it has been the top 3 finishers in the last 2 races was maybe Prius Scored in that order. We may be looking at the same thing happening again because Prius will have a tire advantage over Scored, but he is too far back and has a tire disadvantage to maybe to the end here. Right now, this finishing result would swing the championship to a 16-point advantage in Maybe's favor. But Scored is closing back in on Maybe. He seems to have pace for now. The thing is, he catches him. Can he do anything with him? He needs to get by him. But Scored might have a bit of a benefit. There is traffic ahead that this group is about to come up to, and it looks like one of them is going to be Dr. Pepper, one of them is going to be PTG Nev, and one of them is going to be 2 Fuzzball. Mind you, Fuzzball and Nev are going to be legitimately fighting for their positions. They're not going to be incentivized to just roll over and let these 2 by. Technically let these 3 by as Prius is still within 2 seconds of the lead as well. Coming up on Dr. Pepper this time by. This will put Dr. Pepper 4 laps down now. Maybe drops tires off dirt there, and Scored gets right behind him. Maybe sliding, but Scored is there. Maybe is feeling the pressure. Up to the top, the highest point of the circuit, and now into the corkscrew, and Maybe is held up massively by Dr. Pepper. Scored might have a shot at it. Dr. Pepper goes wide. Maybe slides. Scored slides. He goes into the dirt. Tried to look for room, but there was just no racetrack out there. Prius being held up by traffic a bit longer. This works out for this duo, lest it just be these 2 for a few more corners. Scored perfectly in Maybe's draft, and Dr. Pepper slams the outside wall coming out of the final corner. No damage. He'll be able to continue, though. So Maybe leads. Scored right behind him. Scored desperately trying to force Maybe into mistake. Get Maybe to slide off circuit. Overdrive the car. This has not been a perfectly clean race for Maybe. He has made mistakes. He has dropped tires off. He has lost positions at several stages of the event. And he has a big twitch coming out of turn 4 that time by. Now in the final 9 laps of the event. If it just comes down to tires, we know Maybe wins this race by default. But he has to be clean. He has to be perfect to the end here. Oh, and that's Scored! Second place in the championship. He spun out coming uphill. That might be championship over. There's no damage. He'll be able to continue, but he falls not just way off of Maybe. He'll fall behind Prius as well. NFL not close enough to do anything to Scored Buffalo, but that may have just decided the championship. Championship might just be over due to that, because now that is going to be another 15 points in Maybe's favor. Maybe would leave here with a 16 more points. He had a 10-point advantage over Buffalo coming in. He would leave this race with a 26-point advantage. Prius still within 2 seconds of Maybe. If something goes wrong with Maybe, Prius would be there in a perfect opportunity to capitalize. But it's relatively clean track for the next little bit. PTG Neb runs in the 7th spot right now. He's got fresh tires. He won't have to worry about tire fall off to the end at least. Fuzzball runs ahead of him in 6th spot. Fuzzball has more worn tires, but he also shouldn't have to worry too much about fall off to the end of this race. But a completely self-inflicted mistake coming uphill by Scored Buffalo. He is now going to be way behind the 8 ball in the championship fight with just 2 races left. And I said this earlier in the pre-race, Prius, the thing is that while he does not have the points to fight with Maybe or Scored for the championship, his presence means that Maybe and Scored have to be picture perfect, and any mistake that either of them make, Prius is immediately there, willing to take the free position. Again, 3 straight races with the same 3 people finishing on the same steps of the podium by the looks of it. While there is still chances for maybe or Prius or Scored to make a mistake and that to change, it does not look likely right now. Again, the big thing for Scored as well, he has to kind of nurse these tires to the end. He's already at 41% wear with 7 laps to go. For comparison, maybe, who will not have to worry about tire fall off. He's only at 23% wear right now. And then Prius, who's going to have to worry about a bit of fall off near the very end, he is at 29% at the moment. Now, Scored is running 13 seconds ahead of NFL. NFL is at 32% wear, so NFL is comparable to Buffalo when it comes to... well, he's better than Buffalo when it comes to tire life. He's a little bit more comparable to Prius on tire life right now, as he's going to go around the outside and he's more fair. So Big Block and Pindaz and Golden have all gone a lap down. Most notably, though, Big Block is only about half a straightaway ahead of Pindaz. If he makes a mistake, Pindaz could nip him for that position. Fuzzball, who runs ahead of Neb on circuit, he is being held up by his teammate, GRPK Golden, who is running a lap down. So I imagine Golden would play the good teammate game and move over and let Fuzzball go by, just so Fuzzball could more easily bring home a 6th place result. That does not seem to be the case, though. Golden is not willing to just move over and let Fuzzball through, and that works out in Neb's favor, because Neb is in clean air right now. He can click off some laps to try and run down Fuzzball to the end here. Prius is within 1 3/4 of a second of maybe, but is starting to slowly lose ground. Maybe, though, will catch a little bit of traffic in the form of Neb, and Neb is trying to run down to Fuzzball. And Fuzzball is being held up by Golden. That's Neb in the background there. And now here's Maybe coming out of the final corner. So traffic could still be a factor, and traffic stole the win at Mid-Ohio away from Maybe as well, if you remember. Scored Buffalo won 3 of the first 6 races this season, but Maybe is trying to go even better. He's trying to win 3 races in a row right now. And Prius is just slowly dropping off from Maybe. Scored is still holding about 11 seconds behind this top 2, but we think with about 3 laps to go, Scored is going to hemorrhage all sorts of time. Fuzzball has finally gotten by GRPK Golden. Golden is on some really badly cooked tires. And he is half a lap behind Pindaz and Big Block. I imagine for Golden, the best option would just be to chuck the car into the pits, throw on some new rubber, and then just, run to the end. He is not at risk of being overtaken for position from these Morpher Dr. Pepper, and he is nowhere near Pindaz or Big Block on circuit. Yeah, real quickly, I look at Big Block and Pindaz, where they are at on tire life. 28% here for Big Block, so he won't have to worry about pain again. And Pindaz back here in the 9th spot. He's at 41%, a little worse, but again, he shouldn't have to worry about pitting to the end here. So Golden, ideally, should just pit, but I wonder if Golden is going to stay out to try and hold up Neb, run defense for Fuzzball. Thing is, if he does that, there is a very high risk that has a very direct impact on how this race finishes. Thing is, Prius has now fallen nearly 3 seconds out from Maybe now. So even if Maybe is held up for a little bit by these two, the gap may not be enough for Prius to capitalize. I think Maybe he's still going to win this anyway. Again, the top 3 finishers finishing in the same spots for 3 races in a row. No change amongst them. Around the outside goes Neb going into the corkscrew, and he made that stick. Neb has not been afraid to go the long way around in any of these corners. Well, he's not getting a good result, but he's definitely has done his best to make this race interesting. Making overtakes in places you honestly should not be trying. You could just keep it on the track and not have as many spins or off-circuit adventures. He probably would be up in the 4th or 5th position today. And he is still 4 seconds out from Fuzzball, but Fuzzball has better tires and is in clean air to the end. Neb has been faster, but I think the time's just going to run out for him. Maybe is going to have to figure out a way by Golden, but I don't think Maybe he's going to catch Neb here. I don't think he has to worry about catching Neb, at least. So maybe catching Golden. Golden is already a lap down. Maybe try and pull up to the inside of Golden, side-by-side uphill. Golden lets off nice and early and maybe goes by cleanly. No issue for traffic there. Again, I don't think maybe catches Neb before this is over. Unless Neb has a spin. In that case, it's kind of a situation that resolves itself. And Prius, I think, now is just in total tire conservation mode. He's at 48% wear. Oh, and he goes off! I mean, he does have a 9-second advantage over Buffalo. Credit where credit is due. Buffalo is not losing ground to the top two, even though he's hit 62% wear. He's also at 10% in the fuel tank. 2 laps to go for maybe racing. 13% in his fuel tank. A look at Prius, right in second place right now. 10% in the fuel tank, and he's just hit 50% now. Kind of argy-bargy, but Prius forces his way by. Golden there. Neb just trying desperately to stay on the lead lap. And then on top of that, he can see Fuzzball up ahead of him. Fuzzball's at 13% on his fuel level. Neb is at 25%. So Neb has got a heavier fuel tank, but he's going awesome. Neb is actually better on tires than Fuzzball. I got that wrong. So Neb is legitimately closing on Fuzzball. Might seal 6th here on this final lap. Now scored Buffalo is hemorrhaging time to the top 2, but he still has 14 seconds over NFL in 4th place. And NFL is being held up by lap traffic in the form of Big Block. So I think Buffalo's still on track for a podium. The strategy got him in the podium positions, but he was on the back foot. He was making the best of it, but a completely self-inflicted mistake has not only taken away his shot at winning tonight, but may have effectively killed his championship run. White flag is in the air. We're just watching to see if Neb is going to be able to catch Fuzzball by the end here and try to steal 6th. Fuzzball came home 5th last week at Watkins Glen. .55% wear tires, and Fuzzball goes off! Fuzzball is off, and that should be it for Neb! Neb's gonna go by! No, he's not. He's not by yet, but he's caught him! Neb catches him, and he goes around the outside! Long way around the top of the corkscrew! He goes deep! Fuzzball goes deep, and Neb gets him! Neb into the top half of the field! Up and down and all around today for Neb. And as the leader is coming to take the checkered flag, Neb gets 6, but it's not already up. Fuzzball dive bombs him and just knocks him off circuit. And he's gonna force Neb to try and pull over and try and trap Neb a lap down. But no, Neb's still ahead of the leader. This fight's not over. Maybe is your winner, but Neb and Fuzzball still get to race the rest of this event. Now Neb goes deep going into the Andretti hairpin. And Fuzzball now falls behind Neb. And that is AI traffic in the turn, but maybe Racing runs right into the rear of Fuzzball as they go through turn 3. So Neb's now ahead of Fuzzball, but they now have Maybe's AI Ghost right behind them. Prius hands home 2nd, scored 3rd. Again, no real surprises for any of those positions. This is what we're really looking at. Neb versus Fuzzball, and Fuzzball drops his tires off into the dirt again, coming uphill. They only have about a handful of corners left. None of them really good overtaking opportunities. Fuzzball made a big dive bomb, really tricky stuff on Neb, and then Neb barely stayed ahead of the leader, was allowed to fight for another lap. He's got back by, played the favor back to Fuzzball. That might be enough for Neb to take home 6th. Might not be a podium result, might not be a lot of points in the line, but for Neb, it's going to be worth it because he has had a nightmare of a day, but it looks like he's been able to make the end part of this race work out for him. PTG Neb, despite spinning out twice, will finish on the lead lap, will finish in the top half of the field in 6th. 2 Fuzzball will get 7th, and that is a spin from Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper spins and gets hit just as his race came to an end there. So an accident after the start-finish line as Dr. Pepper crashed the car coming across the start-finish line, and then Neb, just as he finished his race, hit him as well. We're going to take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll talk to our top 3 finishers here at Laguna. Okay, well, I'm gonna blame Xbox parts for being crap. Can you guys hear me?
Gotcha this time.
All right, cool. Are you guys able to include your audio?
Yep.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Laguna Seca. Our race is over. And for starters, I want to talk with Scored Buffalo. Buffalo missed qualifying, jumped onto an alternate strategy that put you in contention to fight for the win, but a self-inflicted mistake as a disappointing third place again. What do you have to say about your run out there?
There you go. I think I was on the. If I was here for qualifying, I could have won it with that strategy. Because going into the race, I have never driven this car on this track. So, being I was on the alternate strategy and also figuring out how to drive the car, and those mediums were horrible. And I was not expecting that. I heard that they were horrible, but I wasn't expecting it to be that bad. So, uh, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, with what I did, I definitely think I could have won it, but just it just wasn't going my way. And then at the end there, I mean, I already knew that I was going to be third based on my tire wear, but I just wanted to see if I can maybe fight with maybe, and then we have a three-car battle, and then things start happening. But inside curb at the kink is really unforgiving. So after that, I just kind of just settled in.
Well, a third place result today, you're going to lose 15 more points to maybe, plus another point lost due to maybe getting pole. So you're now going to be 26 points behind maybe with 2 races left. You will get some of those points back due to the drop rounds, but do you still think you have a shot at the championship?
Yeah, I think if I at least put some practice in and appear for qualifying, I think I'll get it, or I have a possibility to get it if things go decently well, or I don't have another incident like Road America where my internet just did whatever and I lost because of it. So, as long as nothing like that happens again, I think I'm still in it.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the word from Scored Buffalo. 3 straight third place finishes for Scored Buffalo. Now I want to turn our focus to our second place finisher, Prius Killer. Prius, that is the closest you have been all season long to beating both Maybe and Scored on outright pace, but still came out about 3 seconds short at the end. What do you have to say about your run out there?
Honestly, I was feeling pretty good about it. I was leading out of my second pit stop, and I had like a 3 second gap to maybe because they'd made a mistake. And I was actually feeling like I had a pretty good chance of winning that, but then Neb got my way as soon as I came out of the pits because he's on dying tires and just happened to be there right as I came out. That lost me basically my whole gap to maybe. Then he gets past, and then maybe just drives away in the final stint because I keep making massive mistakes there. Got the fastest lap somehow, which with the pace I had isn't the most surprising, but is still somewhat surprising. But yeah, I think ultimately Neb is what messed up most of that chance at winning.
Yeah, it seems like Neb was kind of the wild card. In another series I cover, we have a driver called Lil Kid Swab who seems to constantly be involved in instance, and Neb was definitely doing the suave strategy today of just constantly being involved in stuff. Prius, 3 second place finishes in a row. I believe you are on 5 straight podium results as well right now. Incredible run of performance. Do you think you can still steal a win at Sebring or Miami before the season is over?
Honestly, Searing, if the Corvette Challenge has anything to say about it, if maybe and Scored fight each other enough, I have a decent shot at that one. I seem to have some pace there occasionally. I don't know. Homestead, I definitely have the pace. We'll see with the 2x wear instead of the 2.5 in the first race to see how the strategy plays out then and see if the 33 laps has anything to go about it.
All right. Well, that's the word from Prius Killer. And while his closest rival in the points, NFL, still finished way behind him, it seems like, while he's not locked up second in the championship, third in championship. It looks like Prius is well on the way to doing that. Good job on your run out there. And now to talk to our race winner, Maybe Racing. Maybe. First half of the season for you was god-awful. Way off of your normal performance level. Ran out of fuel at Indy. Nowhere near the front at Hakone. Suboptimal time at Grand Oak. Just all sorts of rough times earlier in the season. You've really come hot in the final half. 3 race wins in a row, and now you're starting to stretch out with a championship lead. What has changed at the midpoint of the season for you?
Just luck. Luck shifted in my favor. I really don't know what else. I felt like even going off the first few races of the year, Hakone I could have won if the caution didn't come out. Homestead I should have won, and Grand Oak I could have won. There was a few that I could have won. Grand Oak wasn't as much because I was on an alternate strategy because I couldn't get the tire wear right. There was 2 or 3 races that slipped through the cracks that I could have won. Mid-Ohio was probably the 4th at that point, and since Mid-Ohio was kind of that shift point where the luck started to turn in my favor. Maybe I've been a little bit more brazen, maybe, I don't know. Luck has been on my side and starting to put good results together.
All right, you now have a 26-point lead. Well, actually, no, let's just about the race itself. What do you have to say about today's race in general? You started from the pole, but you didn't walk off and lead the entire race. You had a lot of pressure all day today. How in the world did you keep your head under you?
Just trying to keep it simple, trying not to make too many erratic moves, trying to be just simple on the car, keep the tires clean, and just control that race from where I am. Luckily I had that possibility, and luckily I was able to capitalize on it.
All right. You leave today's event with what I believe is a 26-point lead over Scored Buffalo. Now, when the drop rounds come in, you are going to lose 15 points. But with that said and done, you're still basically 11 points ahead of Scored Buffalo with 2 races left. Championship momentum is in your favor. So, with 2 races left, do you drive aggressively or do you drive conservatively?
Ultimately, I know it's all going to come down to Homestead, and I feel like I'm pretty confident in my abilities there. Next week, I'm not certain on whether I can make it or not. I have a few things going on outside of this, and I'll see if I can make it. I'm not going to stress about it too much. I'm glad enough that I have the buffer that I have to see how everything falls. I'll be able to fight Homestead, at the least.
Yeah, true. If you don't show up next week, the championship fight still mathematically goes on to Miami. So that is a fair point there. All right. One more thing, maybe. Top 3 finishers in this week, last week, and 2 weeks ago. All the same people in the exact same places. Maybe first, Prius second, Scored Buffalo in third. Just wanted to share that because that is some really weird freak circumstances. Because it's not like all 3 of you ended up in those positions for the same reasons. There's been different things that have put you in those spots each race. So, interesting thing to take note of. All right. With that in mind, that will pretty much wrap up our broadcast tonight at Laguna Seca. A lot of interesting on-track stuff, pretty much from start to finish. Not quite as intense as Watkins Glen was at the end, but still a very interesting race. There are still 2 more races, and we will be back next weekend on next Sunday night for the penultimate race at Sebring. We'll also still be covering the penultimate races for the X League's Porsche Cup and GT3 Pro Series next weekend as well. But until next time, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13. Thank you everyone for joining us. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.